Hello, my name is Gary Gomes. It's August 2nd, 2020. I'm going to give you a quick forecast on the full moon coming up August 3rd and also on the month of August in general. As always, if you like my videos, please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. I will be moving to more of a podcast format fairly soon, probably within about 2 to 3 weeks. And but we'll also have camera, and so you can see my lovely face on the screen. And for those of you who don't want to see my lovely face, you can always turn it off and just look at the chart, so you won't have to worry about upsetting yourself or scaring the children. So basically, what we have here is the Sagittarius chart. Every sign is moved back roughly 23 to 24 degrees. And I've been a Vedic astrologer for roughly 30 years now. I'll be 30 years in this November. So basically, the orientation of the chart, the basics of the chart are as follows. I set the rising sign for the chart to have Sun in the first house, and we have Sun directly aspecting Saturn, which doesn't imply, to me at least, that governmental action will be slowed down or very tight and very oppressive on both sides, from all sides this month. It's at least until August 15th, after which the government will become stronger. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're looking at charts like this, you have Mars in the 9th house, so that does tend to indicate a stronger exertion of governmental authority. You have Rahu, Venus, and Mercury all in the 12th house. Mercury changed signs today as we're talking. So basically, Mercury is no longer in Gemini, but as the month started, it was in Gemini, and it was at a very high degree of Gemini. So that usually means Mercury's fairly weak. Is the planet which is connected with communications, but it's also connected with it's what's called the Amakaraka planet in the chart. It's planet its highest in degree regardless of the sign that's placed in. So essentially that'll mean that communications will be the most important thing that's happening this month. And because of the Mercury-Rahu conjunction in the chart, most communications have been flawed or misunderstood or scandalized. And what I mean by that is you're going to have people reading the worst possible interpretation they can into a communication. And that applies to the news media, that applies to the government, that applies to virtually everybody. So it's been a very untrustworthy summer. Nobody's really trusted each other for the past couple of months because Mercury's been stuck in the sign for a while, along with Rahu. It's created a lot of paranoia, both around fear of the disease, the pandemic we're currently encountering, and also fear about the government, and also fear basically on both sides that they can't trust each other. Thankfully, with Mercury changing signs, that'll lessen, but it'll still make people a little bit afraid because Saturn will be aspecting Mercury for the balance of the month. So the pressure we're feeling right now will change from unreasonable fear to basically what I would like to call fear of taking action, because Saturn likes to be very, very sure of itself before it does anything. Saturn's in the house of long-term relationships in this sign. This puts a lot of pressure on long-term relationships too. Saturn's aspecting Mars, so the government will be held under great scrutiny this month. Every government in the world, not just the United States government. And you also have Venus with Rahu and Mercury. This is going to put, again, more strain on relationships because you're going to look around you and say, this isn't what I signed up for, or this isn't what I deserved in any facet of life, even among your friendships, because Venus rules your 11th house in terms of your aspirations. And Mars aspecting Venus and Mercury means you're willing to fight for it, even if people are lying about it to you. Okay? So basically, this pattern of mistrust we've seen over the past couple of months will not dissipate anytime soon. It'll be more cautious. People will move more deliberately. Um, and this is one of the reasons why we've had such a delay in reaching an agreement on stimulus packages and financial aid packages to cities. It's mainly the Sun Saturn aspect, which has been going on since July 15th. So people are concerned. They want to do something. They're panicking a little bit, especially the news media is panicking because essentially they're controlling the communication, the flow of communication. I'm not saying that to be negative about the news media. Essentially, it's just really a symptom of this particular conjunction. Also, you'll find Aries people getting a little bit panicky over the next month or so. You'll see a lot of those people being active. And also, Moon, Jupiter, Ketu, this indicates spread of disease. Now, several months ago, I had said that the disease will balloon after after Jupiter entered Sagittarius. And this has turned out to be true. And the reason I said that is because everybody loves Jupiter as a planet. It's a great planet, but it expands things. It makes things grow. So essentially, if it's in the same sign with K2 is in a difficult nakshatra or lunar mansion, it'll cause some problems. Also, the good aspect of Venus going into the sign along with Rahu is that Venus will create some allopathic cures over the next month. Some of them won't be entirely effective or completely effective because of the Venus-Rahu conjunction, but they'll at least give hope. Okay, so that's one good thing. Also, with the Venus-Rahu conjunction, Venus is one of the few planets that has the power to direct or manage Rahu, and it will help people calm down a little bit. You'll still see panicky occurrences. You'll still see a lot of concern about spread. You'll still see a lot of concern over the economy. But Venus in the 12th house in the chart is usually good for money. Also, I want to mention the comet that just passed, and I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately. It's a really a funny name. But basically, that comet occurred, it was a double-tailed comet, for one thing. It occurred in essentially between these two signs. One of the significations of that comet, or the type of comet it was, because it occurred in the north, is basically that it brings a lot of death at the beginning, but in the end, prosperity. So you will see as this comet starts to fade out in influence, which will take about another couple of months, which is interestingly also around the same time the K2 changes signs, a lot of lessening of the intensity of this disease, and also more cooperation and more progress being made towards cures. Now, one thing I would like to mention is the K2 is going to enter Scorpio, where it's exalted. So some people could say that's where it's at its best. Others could say that's where it's at its worst, where it's at its most insidious and most sneaky. So there may be a mutation of the disease. I'm optimistic, though, that basically around that time, around September, you're going to see Rahu changing signs. Rahu is good for material growth, and Venus will be unobstructed, at least in this chart. So Venus will be in a much better position to provide cures. It'll be in a much better position to provide vaccinations or preventive therapy. And Jupiter won't be in that position to get a final delivery of a medicine until sometime in November. But you will see, I think, more control over the planet, especially when Rahu, more control over the coronavirus, especially when Venus moves into Taurus and when K2 moves into Scorpio. Now, when K2 moves into Scorpio, that does actually activate a lot of sneaky operations around the world. So a lot of agencies that are engaged in spying, those people will tend to be more active. Uh, I don't think there'll be more war monitoring though this year, to be honest with you. Although Mars is going to be teetering between these two signs over the next few months. So over the next few months, you'll see Mars sort of like at the end of Pisces and at the beginning of Aries. So basically, as we're heading into August, Mars will enter Aries. That's good. Mars is friendly. It feels comfortable in its own sign. However, it will make governments more bellicose because it will be aspecting the sun. The sun will escape that influence in after August 15th. So you'll see a lot of what they call saber rattling between August, roughly August 10th and August 15th. I don't think it'll evolve into a war. And I also think you'll see a lot of activity connected around social media as enablers of propaganda. I think one of the things we're seeing right now, as I predicted in an interview I had with Gary O'Toole, and also at the beginning of the year, a lot of social media is going to fall under a great deal of discretion. It's already happened in Europe. It's happening right now as we speak in the United States, and you'll see how these platforms, and we've seen already how these platforms can be manipulated or used. And you'll start to see increasing as Mercury goes into under the influence of the Sun and Saturn, at least efforts to start to bring these under some kind of regulation, and not just in the United States but across the world. So India has already, in addition to President Trump trying to take actions to clamp down on TikTok, India is also making plans to clamp down on TikTok. I think they've already taken steps, and it's not necessarily that the site itself is a bad site, but essentially, and 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 I'm not even saying the people who use it are wrong to use it, but a lot of these media sites tend to expose us to other governments, influences from other governments, things like that. So it's perhaps an overreaction, perhaps an underreaction. I don't know which. But with Mercury and Rahu, there's a certain amount of scandal connected with these sites. There's a certain amount of lying and trickery connected with these sites. So you have to be really cautious about, number one, what you read on media, and number two, what you believe from social media in particular. And I've looked at things and I've said, "Oh, that's great. I agree with that totally," and it's been wrong. So it's not an unreasonable expectation that they would have. So it's a free marketplace of ideas. However, all these media companies are saved from being sued for slander because basically because they have no control over content, but they're exercising more control over content lately. So you can't. So it's a matter. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have control over content and then say, "Whoops, I'm just a free agent. I can't put things through." So there are going to be some interesting ramifications for this over the next few months. And I'd encourage you to watch social media really carefully. Again, not because they're by themselves, they've been doing anything wrong. They're engaging in enterprise. It's kind of like the Wild West, but a lot of them have been um, censoring or taking down videos. And once they start doing that, then, at least from what I understand, from what limited legal knowledge I have, they lose their protection. So, so, so essentially, I'm not siding, I'm not coming down on either side. And I hope this video isn't taken down because of what I've said. But basically, there's if you say everything's open, people can post whatever they want, but then you have your own site saying this is an appropriate comment for our community, and you have governments coming in and trying to infiltrate social media. On the other side, then there's a new aspect that didn't exist years ago. And as we learn more about new media, as we look, let's say, I'll use the example about cars. As we learn more about safety issues with cars, then we impose more regulations on them so they're safe. As we learn more about social media and the way it's working, it's only logical to assume there'll be some kind of attention paid to them as a medium of expression because they can be manipulated. So I'm not taking sides in this. I'm just saying that's what the Rahu Mercury and the Sun Saturn Mercury combination is going to do, at least over the next couple of months. And excuse me, that's still a little bit of noise background. And it'll be, like I said, be interesting to see what develops. Also, for people in relationships, looks to be a kind of a tough month, especially through August 15th. And that's mainly because of the Venus-Rahu conjunction, because Venus and Rahu can make us a little bit hyper-emotional. We want what we want romantically, and we want it now. But the expectations can also be unrealistic. They can also be a little bit inflated or a little bit beyond what's reasonable. So just try to keep that in mind. Try to keep your emotions under control. We have a Moon Venus combination, so people will stick with what they committed themselves to. Jupiter and Venus will also give a lot more relationship opportunities to people just in general. And it's a combination of cabin fever, but also of seeing the same people again and again and again. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a little bit, it's going to be a little bit of a trying time in relationships, probably through at least late September, but most intensely felt this month. The other thing is, let's look at the world. All right, so we have earthquake activity near Alaska, possible earthquake activity again near Alaska, because we have a Saturn line out there and a Jupiter line right next to it. We also have some off the coast of California, although Venus is not really such a strong indicator of earthquakes, but Rahu can bring floods. Venus and Rahu together can bring flooding, and also some kinds of weird types of natural catastrophes. You have really, it looks like a Mercury line running through Texas and essentially Idaho, roughly what I would call early West, so Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas. So there'll be some kind of communication scandals out in that part of the country. A lot of anxiety around Louisiana, and unfortunately, some potential for flooding. And again, communication anxiety around Florida. And a lot of fights and a lot of aggravation, maybe increased domestic disturbances or political disturbances what we would call riots in the old days, around Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky, all the way down through Georgia and Florida. And we have a sun. The sun is going through Washington, D.C. So again, that deadlock that we spoke about before is problematic. There's a deadlock in Brazil right now. Brazil is experiencing a whole array of problems. And there's some potential for earthquakes in Chile, like around the midpoint of Chile, Argentina, and also storms, basically through this section of South America. The parts in Europe which are having some difficulty are essentially Iceland and East Africa. The moon is going through France, so there's some flooding problems there, some flooding issues there, and there may be some border disputes in Germany and as well in Eastern Europe. So I think immigration problems in that part of the country. If we're looking carefully, Turkey can have some governmental issues, some restrictions on the government. So can Egypt, so can Sudan. And this goes all the way through Mozambique and down into South Africa. So there will be some problems in the government in that part of the world, also in Finland, Poland. So Eastern Europe in general, it doesn't look to be in phenomenal shape, but it doesn't look horrible either. It just looks like, and again, we were talking about outbreaks. So Spain is subject to more outbreaks and of disease, and so is Northern Africa. The other planets we want to look at is Venus and Rahu are passing through India and China. There'll be continued disputes in that part of the world and all the way up through Russia. The Japanese will have some problems with their government, and we just look a little bit further over. Some flooding in China, some problems in Hong Kong again, and also in Indonesia. So those are the hot spots right now. New Zealand actually looks like it's poised for something difficult as well. Right over here, is that New Zealand? No, that's the Philippines. I'm sorry, not New Zealand. That's the Philippines. My apologies. And let's look a little bit to the south. And there is some potential for problems in New Zealand. I can see it down here. There's a Rahu line going through New Zealand, so there'll be a little bit of a panic in New Zealand. New Zealand has been doing remarkably well in terms of the coronavirus lately, so I don't think it's going to be something like that, but there'll be a little bit of panic or a little bit of a worry or concern over an outbreak down there. Australia looks like it's largely untouched, but again, some problems with the government in Australia. The earthquake issues, although I'm not crazy about earthquakes, the most likely parts look like they're going to be off Italy and Greece, the area between Italy and Greece, and also perhaps in eastern India and through Bangladesh. So let me get off the screen again and let me talk about the signs. All right, so starting with Aries. Aries will have a lot of ambition this month, a lot of desire, a lot of need to express itself. and they'll be fine. It'll get a lot of help from people who are higher ups, a lot of career help. But there'll also be a lot of perfectionism. For Sun as sign, they'll also probably have some kind of relationship issues where it will seem like they're being taken advantage of by relationship partners. So they have to be a little careful about that. The other thing is for Aries, this is between April 15th and May 15th, of course, that happened at that time. You'll see a lot of focus on home life. Home life and work life will be a kind of a conflict or a need to balance. For Taurus, Taurus is going to have a lot of money, a lot of communications, but it'll want more money. It'll want more activity. But its luck, its money luck will be good this month. Very strong ambition. This is between May 15th and June 15th. But also some problems in relationship life, as spouse will seem difficult and luck will seem to be a little bit tough. It'll be tough to hold on to money for this sign. For Gemini, Gemini has not had an easy time of it. So this is between June 15th and July 15th. Has not had an easy time of it for the past year and a half. In terms of relationships and who the person's attracted to, they'll find themselves attracted to a lot of people, a little bit uncertain about what direction they're going in relationship-wise. And I think with the Venus and Mercury combination in the first house, so they'll be very communicative, very social. Finances should improve for the sign, which has been a problem for them over the past year and a half or so. And they'll start to see some success. But with Saturn in the 8th, relationship life will be a little bit stagnant or a little bit delayed. Sun's in the second house. That's good for money, good for attainment of goals. And Mars is in the 10th house, which is good for work life, but they'll be expected to do a lot more than usual. For Cancer, Cancer has, this is between July 15th and August 15th. Cancer is aspected by Saturn, so it's going to mean problems for people with the sun, moon, or rising sign in terms of long-term relationships. They'll be delayed or they'll be obstructed. And also overall, but the yogi point is in the sign, so this is good for financial growth for the sign. You'll be lucky for finances. This is between July 15th and August 15th. These people were born. And essentially, that sign looks fairly good in terms of, but although they should watch out for stomach problems and they should watch out for losing their temporary work, although their work luck will be relatively good. Again, for Leo rising, this is August 15th through September 15th. You have general luck is shown from the chart, although the first lord is in the 12th house, but finances look good. And overall, for this sign, there'll be good work opportunities, good luck to children, good luck in romantic involvements, although there will be some people from the past who come back to coming into their lives again. And this is overall good for career life for them as well, although Mars is in the 8th house, so they do have to be careful again about people taking advantage of them. For Virgo, Virgo's again experiencing problems with relationship life. They've had this really for the past 3 or 4 months with people demanding a great deal of them and also being very tough to please. But overall, career life looks very good for them. Financial life looks very good for Virgo. This is between September 15th and October 15th. And relationship life, though, again, a little bit of a squabble, a little bit of a problem, more arguments than normal. But overall, not a bad chart. For Venus, ruled sign Libra, which happens between October 15th and November 15th, there'll be some problems with bosses or supervisors, although they will have basically sweet luck, but they'll have bosses or supervisors not trusting them quite as much as they normally do. But also with Venus and Rahu, this will also elevate the person to a position of power. The moon Jupiter opposition though will keep that in check a little bit, but it will be overall an auspicious month for this rising sign. Saturn's in the fourth house. That aspects the first house, so a lot of work for the sign. Just a tremendous amount of work and responsibility for the sign. Mars is in the sixth house, more enemies than usual, more opposition than normal for this sign. And that'll continue really through the fall. And they'll also have to be very careful of their health and their spouse's health. Scorpio has, this is between November 15th and December 15th. Scorpio has Saturn in the third house, but you have a cluster of benefic placements in the second house, although K2 is a little bit disruptive. This can cause a lot of arguments at home, but they'll be resolved fairly quickly. Saturn aspects Mars, kids will be tough to please. And over here in the eighth house, you have Venus, Rahu, and Mercury in the eighth house, so there'll be a lot of interest in occult or metaphysical matters, but also problems in relationship life. So basically, no sign is really having a free ride in terms of relationship life this month, or at least until August 15th. And then you'll see some improvement, but not a lot of improvement until the end of September. The other thing is, in terms of the chart, career life looks good. Sun's in the ninth house. It's good for financial gains and also for career advancement. So that looks really good. And overall, monetary gains will tend to be dissipated or spread pretty quickly on prior commitments. For Sagittarius again, a difficult relationship life. Venus, Mercury, they'll be tempted by a lot of people who aren't going to be entirely honest or who aren't quite what they seem to be. Moon and Jupiter in the first house will protect them somewhat, but they'll be a little bit easy to fool because of K2 being there. Saturn's in the second house. Also, there'll be a lot of expenses connected with the sign, especially connected with home. And although this Venus in the seventh house is not necessarily a horrible combination, they do have to be careful about who they trust relationship-wise. Sun is in the eighth house, so their confidence will be a little bit down, so they'll be easy to trick in relationships, unfortunately. And career-wise, they should be doing pretty well, though, so they can stay out of relationships or stay out of actively seeking relationships. They'll probably be better off this month. Saturn is in Capricorn. Capricorn starts around January 15th, ends up around February 14th. This sign looks like it's going to have a lot of pressure from the spouse again. And Mars shows up in the third house, so they'll have a lot of ambition, a lot of career focus, a lot of obsession with advancing career-wise for this particular sign. And it'll also mean problems with potential loss of relationship partner, potential alienation from a relationship partner because of desires or ambitions. So just be careful that you don't let your career focus, which is very strong this month, get in the way of your relationship life. Aquarius has Venus and Mercury in the fifth house, Mars in the second house, Sun in the sixth house. So there will be some debts to government which will have to be repaid. And that'll come pretty hard pretty quickly, actually, because Saturn's aspecting the Sun. But overall, a good chart for money, somewhat good for love affairs, although not good for serious long-term entanglements, and also good for financial growth and new friends, especially spiritual friends. So I'm not encouraging people to cheat on their relationship partners, but if you're single, it should give you a lot of romantic opportunities, but I wouldn't bank on them lasting very long. Mars is in Pisces in the chart. Pisces lasts between roughly March 15th and April 15th in the Vedic chart. Mars is in the first house, so there's multiple Mars, what I call multiple Mars affliction charts this month. This is one of them. And basically, this chart tends to have no real happiness from spouse. Spouse tends to be a little bit difficult to deal with, a little bit restrictive, difficult to please. However, and Saturn aspects the first house of the sign has a lot of work responsibilities to do, but career-wise, it looks like a pretty good month. Unexpected burdens, unexpected activity, but basically pretty good. And Venus is aspecting Jupiter and Moon, so pretty good for cures, pretty good for financial progress. If we're looking at the entire chart, we're looking at, let's say, the United States chart. The United States chart has, you know, has a lot of planets. Its rising sign is Sagittarius. This is for July 4, 1776 at 6:30 p.m. in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when we signed the Declaration of Independence. And we have a lot of planets interfering with Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and Sun. And Mercury and Rahu are also afflicted. So it's good for, this combination is good for publicity, but it's also good for yellow press, to be honest. So essentially, or for scandal-driven news. And the moon is in Aquarius, so you'll start to see, at least with Venus in its own sign, or not in its own sign, in its sign of origin, of the origin of the country, you'll start to see some refreshing of the country's energy. With Jupiter in the first house, you'll start to see some refreshing of the country's energy over the next few months. There'll still be problems. Mars aspect in the seventh house will still make people want to fight. It'll still make people want to rebel. It'll still make people want to reassert their freedoms in the most awkward and inappropriate ways. But we'll make our way through it. This is, after all, a chart that has Saturn aspecting Mars as aspecting all these planets at its conception. So if we've survived that through the years, we'll survive these next few years of Rahu Mahadasha. Okay? So that's it for me for this month, or for this couple of weeks. I am going to try, because of personal commitments, it may not be the easiest thing for me to do, but I'm going to try to get that podcast set up as soon as possible. And I look forward to seeing you all again, and I wish you all the best, and stay safe out there, and be nice to each other. We're all we have. Okay? Namaste. And we will talk about some more detailed aspects of the chart and interpretive principles as we go on, and as I get the equipment set up and better presentation. Okay. Again, namaste. God bless you. And thank you.